Greeting, brothers and sisters. One of my viewers sent me this video this morning saying it's, well, I don't know what it is yet, but it is worth watching. I watched this one yesterday because I was doing something on Alec and I pulled up his Instagram page. And when Alec goes away from his family, he tends to need some sort of boost for attention. Remember, like his family was quarantined in their Hampton house and he was held up in their New York, Manhattan condo or apartment or whatever it is, right? And he was posting videos all the time. That's when he got into Trump. That's when he got into trouble. This is what generated his problems now. Of course, shooting somebody at work didn't help. But when he's left alone, he comforts himself through Instagram. Like here, he says, I cannot tell you how much I miss this person. Because you don't? Yeah. Well, why don't you try? But anyways, I'll come back to this one. I saw this one yesterday. I saw like a minute of it, and I knew I was going to cover it today or tomorrow. But then this one showed up, and one of my viewers sent it to me, so it must be, significant in some way. And this one, he seems to be laying down. Day one of our little project. So he's had to go to England to be an actor because, they're more forgiving there about shooting your coworkers. Plus, they probably like the whatever it is, the gossip. And it's 4 minutes and 50 seconds long. He's lying down because, this is the kind of thing that Alec does. In the beginning of the video, he always touches his face for a little bit. He's a face toucher. He's being reflective. He'll touch himself for a little bit. Touch his nose. He's having issues with his nose, touching it a lot. I don't know. Like he's just put something in it. Perhaps cocaine.
Well, I said I would keep a little diary while I was traveling.
And post it on Instagram because you're not going to say anything that's going to cause you any problems. Because you usually are so, thoughtful about your situation and not making it worse.
And working, we had our first date today, which is always tricky.
Especially if there's guns. It's always tricky if there's guns.
I don't work as much as I used to. And
why is that, Alec? Did you have an incident at a job site?
I've said this before maybe, but you go to work and you forget what you're supposed to do.
Yeah, like not shoot your coworker.
I just was like, oh God, what do you do? What is acting or any of this nonsense? But
I think you're acting all the time, Alec.
I've ended up doing, but it's strange to go back to work. I haven't worked since...
You shot somebody at your last job ended when you shot your coworker.
October 21st of last year.
What happened that day, Alec? What was the catalyst that ended your last job?
When this horrible thing happened on the set of this film, and we had the accidental death of our cinematographer, Helena Hutchins.
At your hands, you were holding a gun, which you fired, and it shot her.
I even still find that hard to say. But I went back to work today for the first time in 3.5 months.
Has it been good at 3.5 months?
And, movies are nearly always the same. Everybody's young. Compared to me, everyone's young. Especially an independent film where...
You're making a lot of independent films lately. Why is that? Where are the blockbusters? Where are the A-listers?
There are good people. There are very good people.
Please don't shoot any of them.
But everybody's chasing all the good people, and a lot of the best ones get gobbled up by projects that have more money.
You're on a lot of low-budget films, Alec. Why is that?
You know, when you have a very limited budget, it's you're filling positions with people who are
unsafe, unsavory, unkempt.
Who are good, but they're probably early in their career, and
they make mistakes like, not properly making sure a gun isn't loaded.
And young. Everybody's young.
But you.
And they work hard. The crew of movies are hardworking people.
They're just so hardworking.
Hardworking, on their feet all day.
Until they shoot them and they lay down.
Unheated building, I might add. The building had no heat. And it was a tricky day to try to get everything done. Many, many independent films now can be very tricky in terms of getting them done.
And their safety conditions.
The amount of work you have and the time you have are definitely...
His hair's forming a little Mickey Mouse ears up here.
Not in sync, so... My hair looks like...
I haven't watched this before. I didn't watch this before. He just did that on his own.
Princess Leia, I don't know.
I thought Mickey Mouse ears, but whatever.
But I went back to work today. It was interesting.
Did you go back to work today after 3.5 months where you shot your coworker? Did you? Let's talk about that for a while. Is there a lot of young people that work there?
Interesting. And nice people, nice town I'm in. I miss my kids.
He misses his kids. He always mentions his kids, not his wife.
I miss my Carmen. She's so funny.
He misses his Carmen.
I miss them all. I miss every one of them. I'm so blessed that way. All my kids are so unique. I guess everybody who has a lot of kids feels that way. You can't get over how different they are.
They're different people. They're not like clones. They're all different. It's amazing. Each kid is different than the other. They're like snowflakes. Everyone is different.
They're so different.
Just so different. It's almost like they have different fathers or something.
My kids are so different. But
one's like the mailman. One's like a hilarious yoga instructor. I mean, they're all different. One's like our bodyguard. It's amazing.
Going to be here for a few more days. And then who knows what the future will bring.
Possibly jail time, who knows?
I hope good things. But I get to go home.
He's very sad. He's kind of broken. Hilarious broken him.
And see all my little people. And one big person. Well, she's not very big.
But she's from Spain, Boston, She packs a lot of a punch.
In fact, she's not big at all. She's kind of tiny. But I like her.
Yeah. He likes her a lot. He likes her a lot.
Okay. Hasta mañana.
Mañana. He's breaking down, right? The guy he's imploding. Okay, so he's walking through town in this video. I saw a little bit of it, right? And, it's not spectacular in the sense of, I mean, it wouldn't be worth covering had he not just shot somebody, right? That's the thing about Alec here. He's having a conversation on Instagram, and it goes out to all the people that dislike Alec Baldwin, all of his haters, right? And he's got lots of them because the way he went in on Trump, right? All the things he criticized Trump is the same things that he's exhibited in his existence, in his life, not just shooting, people, but it's his wife. It's not just his wife coming out and appropriating an ethnicity. It's not them being tone deaf and not admitting to their mistakes, all the things he criticized Trump on, right? But this is his defining moment. Like, he shot somebody at work. He was holding the gun. And, he's trying to make it accidental. He's trying to make himself a victim. He did that horrible interview, and he's just made it worse. And people are done with him. Like, people are walking away from him like he's got some sort of disease, right? He's got the career-ending disease of having done something, scandalous, and they want no part of him anymore. They're not asking him to come over. Or, Hollywood's like that, right? Once something happens like this, everyone in Hollywood, they part like the Red frickin' Sea, because they're all superficial narcissists who are, if you get Me Too'd or something happens to you, you don't have any friends there. Like, that's how you know who your true friends are. And Alec doesn't have any because he's kind of annoying and people don't like him anyway. He's, especially people on the right now, but in general. And so, he hasn't been able to retain his fans. He looks like Calibus. He's got these huge, circles under his eyes. He looks demonic, and he's just not aware of his circumstances. So he's walking down the street pretending like he didn't just shoot somebody and that people aren't viewing him that way, right? And that's a mistake. Like I say, you just disappear. You want people to forget why they dislike you. And that can happen now, like Jimmy Kimmel's did it. If you're in a scandal, you just disappear until everything else changes in the world, and you come back in and people have forgotten about your thing, right? And Alec had a big thing. It was covered by the mainstream news for like a month, and certainly Hollywood, all those kind of Hollywood rags and things like this. And it's on top of his wife being outed as faking an accent, pretending to be something she wasn't, right? And so it was two big things, and, he now has to just go away, but he can't do it because he's away. He has to get some attention fee. He needs some sort of way of connecting with people. A lot of people do this on social media, especially these celebrities, and he can't help himself. So he's pretending like nothing's going on in his life as he walks down the street, like he's a guy that people respect and care about his opinion, and they don't.
I'm in this little town. Whenever I come...
Plus, he just, he looks bad. And the angle of his camera, he looks like he's hunched over and like, he's almost looked like some homeless guy, walking down the street. And, instead of some used to be A-list TV movie star who now is relegated to independent films in foreign countries.
To places like this, whenever I travel away from home and away from the U.S., I look at little places like this and I think, what's it like to live here? What would it be like to live here?
What's it like to live here? I don't know. What are these people like? What are their lives like? Let's go into it. Let's forget for a moment that I shot somebody, my coworker. Let's forget for a moment that my wife duped everybody and pretended to be Spanish when she really was from Boston with really white parents.
What would it be like to grow up here, to be a kid, and this was your home, If I grew up in a pretty, suburban town, pretty big town, but it was very suburban, on Long Island, residential Long Island, and
those bags under his eyes aren't making his case any better. I mean, he just looks bad, right? Doesn't he look like a villain? Now, whatever, he was used to be cast as a hero and a leading man and things. And now he looks villainous, right? He's got some kind of cut under his nose. He was bleeding, in a previous video he had some, he said his kid hit him or something. And, he's just, his eyes are like that of a demon, right? He's got disheveled hair and he's like, falling apart. It's like, he's mentally breaking apart.
You don't think about it. I never thought about, I got to get out of here and I'm going to go to Hollywood or any of that bullshit. I never crossed my mind,
Yeah, he was a little kid. He didn't, he wasn't as narcissistic and didn't want to be a star, right? He lived in Long Island. He was content with his many brothers and his Marine sharpshooting father, and
As I got older, I thought, I want to go to college or whatever, but study this or that. I started to figure it out.
Did you, though? Did you figure it out?
Once I left home, once I saw what other people were like, and people different from me, they were like the people who had options. So when you're around people who have options...
See, he should be viewing himself as everybody who's watching this, the majority of them, are still thinking about how he just shot somebody on a movie set, right? Like he's not getting that. That's his defining moment, right? The end of his career. He doesn't really have, what else would you think about Alec Baldwin, right? What other things do you think about other than him shooting, his bad Trump impersonation, the annoying character he played on 30 Rock. He's had, mostly sort of bad films, right? Maybe that speech he gave in Glen Ross where he said always be closing. But that's a distant memory, and he was just, he had a small part in that sort of, like that was an actor's movie, like, with a lot of monologues and high-powered actors, right? Al Pacino and Kevin Spacey and like Ed Harris and those, like sort of powerhouse actors, right? And he had a small part in it. It was like a play, I think, right? Is that what that was? And so, Hunt for Red October, where he sort of, that was his big movie break, right? And then, being on Saturday Night Live and really not being funny. And then shooting somebody. So, like, the shooting somebody is the biggest thing that you think about. It's new, and of course his wife pretending to be Spanish. Like he married this young woman, and they both said she was half, she was from Spain, and she wasn't, right? Like those are the things. And so he's now an Instagram celebrity more than anything else. He's somebody he went from being an A-list celebrity to somebody who is remembered for a scandal. And that happens to people where they are remembered for, that's how they're defined. Like when you think about Alec Baldwin years from now when he's disappeared completely, he's in the 70s, 80s, or he's dead or whatever it is. People remember that guy who shot who was that guy who shot his shot the cinematographer? That's how he's going to be defined. This is his defining moment. And walking through a small town like some homeless golem, right? And reminiscing about his days in Long Island isn't going to, like he's clueless to what's going on with his, people's perception of him. And his people's perception of him as an actor is everything, right? Their brand is everything. Because Hollywood casts people based in their brand, right? Based in how you're perceived by the public. Based in them being liked, based in them, people wanting more from them. And people don't want more from Alec Baldwin. People aren't saying, I hope Alec Baldwin's in a movie. Like there's a commercial I'm going to cover, a Super Bowl commercial with Pete Davidson. Now, Pete Davidson was a really ghoulish, awkward, not really funny comedian who was weird on Saturday Night Live, and then he dated Ariana Grande, and then all of a sudden he's been this, hot commodity, right? Even though he's so ghoulish and, he's not very likable. He walked out on his comedy. I mean, I've covered him in the last couple of years, but he's somebody that people are interested in, young people particularly, and now he's a star and featured on Saturday Night Live, and it's not, something you can explain, right? And he's in this stupid Hellman's commercial. I'll show you that after this. And so there's a difference. Like, he's somebody on the rise. I think he's from Staten Island or whatever it is, right? And then, Alex from Long Island. But Pete Davidson's on the rise, and Alec Baldwin's falling. He's fell, and he doesn't, he can't get up. And he doesn't even realize it, right? And so he's doing this like, he's some celebrity that people care about. Like the last big event didn't happen, and it's happened. That's how he's going to be defined. When you think about Alec Baldwin, he's a guy that shot his coworker, right? Like, no matter what he wants to say about it, that's what you think. That's what everyone's going to think. And he married a woman who pretended to be an ethnicity that she wasn't. So those are the two things, right? That's how Alex is going out. There's nothing he can do about that, unless he does something way worse. The only thing he could do is do something worse so people forget about the other things, right? But he's not. He's in these independent films. He's not, he's not going to. This is like, how life works when you base it on people's perception of you, strangers' perception of you. Superficial things, how you look, being a celebrity. When it's like, your brand, when you're building a fake brand, your brand can be, decimated at any time. We've seen this with social media celebrities. We see it with regular celebrities and politicians and athletes. You can be a defining moment for you. And that defining moment, for like Scottie Pippen, right? Scottie Pippen's defining moment is that he refused to go back into a game when he didn't get the last shot. Now, nobody thought about that for years. He retired and he was on ESPN and whatever he was doing. And then Michael Jordan made that documentary, and then Scottie made a big deal about it and wrote a book about it. And then if you're not aware of that, like it was in a playoff game and Phil Jackson gave the last shot to somebody else, and the guy hit the shot, which made it even worse. Scottie refused to go back in the game. And Michael Jordan pointed that out in his documentary, and Scottie got pissed, and now that's how people are going to remember him. That he was a baby and sort of selfish, and now him and Michael Jordan's relationship is, he wrote a book about it, right? About like how selfish Michael Jordan was, and so like that's what's defined him years later. Like, people didn't notice it as much, but then he made a big deal about it. And this is the same thing with Alec, right? Like, he's done this thing, and then he did the stupid interview, and he's made it worse. On top of what he did with Trump, which pissed people off on the right, his bad impersonation, and constantly hammering him on Instagram. And so this is how it goes when you're a celebrity. You're out there in the public, and you care about what people think about you, because he keeps on coming back and trying to redeem himself, and he can't. Like, walking down the street in England and reminiscing and talking about, what it's like to live in a small town isn't going to make people forget that you just shot your coworker, right?
Their ambitions are contagious. You really begin to think more about what you'd like to do that you never thought of before. You didn't think it was real. But I'm walking down this little street in this little town. I see little kids and some teenage boys.
Where are you going with this, bro? This isn't a good start to a thought here.
This is their home. And they living their lives and trying to have fun, stay out of trouble, get into trouble, slalom between the two.
Grow up and shoot a cinematographer. Who knows what future holds for them?
And I'm always touched because it's the same everywhere. It just seems different here, but it's
See, if you're from that kind of area, which I'm from, Connecticut, that area, right, in the Northeast, where it's, called ball busting. You have like a lot of ball busting friends, right? I've talked about this before. And you might have one friend who did something embarrassing, like that they'll be defined by, right? And, when everybody's like talking smack to each other and making fun of each other, which I'm not proving or saying that's a good way to be. And we can see that with that show Impractical Jokers, like that kind of, ball busting group of friends. If you do something that is like, a defining moment, like if you, I don't know, crap your pants or something like really embarrassing. Every time that you go out, one of your friends, they're gonna bring that thing up, right? Like they're gonna say, "Hey, remember time you crapped your pants?" No matter what you do, they got something on you that's worse than whatever they're doing, right? And so this is what's happened to Alec. Like he doesn't even realize it, that he had this defining moment, and it's going to be a defining moment for him. He can't get away from it, right? And the way social media works and all of it, the best thing you can do is have people forget about you altogether. And then 6 months, people don't care about whatever's going on, World War III. I mean, who knows, And then you can reemerge. Like you don't go out there and make Instagram videos. But his wife loves her attention, so she's going to constantly do it. She's always posting things and then deleting it because they have lawyers and publicists. If they were listening to these people, they say just disappear, like just go away and reemerge. Right? You got enough money. Or if you're going to make a movie or something like this little independent, who knows what money's making on this thing. But your career is basically over. The glory days are far from over. You peaked like, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago. You got money and just live out your life because, I mean, this is about being invited to parties or, all these other things, right? Like, this is a Hollywood tragedy where other celebrities are throwing him under the bus. Angelina Jolie threw him under the bus. And, Nicolas Cage and that group of actors, you have to be trained in this thing, threw him under the bus, and George Clooney and some of these other people. They all, they blame him for not checking the firearm. And so he's like even done in that arena. Like he's got his kids and his wife, which he keeps on saying, oh my God, I love my family. Yeah. Because it's all you got left, right? You got a wife who's already been like scandalized herself. She's not going anywhere. She wants to be a celebrity, and now she's gone from being a celebrity's Spanish wife to somebody who's notorious, right? And that's your defining moment, both of you. And that's how people are going to remember you. And he's just fallen apart here. His inner condition, like he's turning into a demon here, right?
It's foreign. It's unfamiliar to me. About kids and people and what they want. I always wanted to go into politics because I wanted to try to help people get rid of as many of their problems as possible.
That you're such a wonderful person. That's what I think about you. Like not a guy who's into himself and social and look at him look away like he's playing a role and he actually believes what he just said. That he's all about helping other people and their problems, right? We do know he gave money to that family of veterans that died in Afghanistan, and there was a woman, a pregnant woman. He gave money to her, but then her sister was, somebody who was a Trumper, and then he wrote and got into a problem with that, and now they're suing him. Like he did a good thing. He tried to, without. As far as I know, maybe he talked about it on Instagram. Like, who knows why he was doing it. But maybe he does in some way want to help other people, but that doesn't come across, right? And you left a kid without a mom. That's the story that you've been given. And that's how everyone's going to remember you.
I know that's a codependent fantasy, but I wanted to try to help people do away with as many of their problems as possible and just live and be happy. Anyway, I'm in this little town. It's just it's nice to get out of the U.S.
It's like he's like completely broken mentally, right? Like it's just one of those people like, Blanche Dubois or somebody like in the streetcar named Desire or whatever it was called. Somebody who's just like, oh, everything's great, everything's wonderful. They're in like some insane asylum and they're fantasizing about the glory days and, they're broken off from reality.
See how things are different and how they're the same. It never ceases to amaze me. Anyway, I'm gonna do a little diary while I'm here.
Yeah, this. Did you talk to your publicist or your lawyer or anybody? Because they would say, yeah, don't do that. Why are you doing that? It's not going to be helpful for you.
You can see that no matter where I go around the world, my hair is.
It's not your hair, it's your eye. This is your problem. It's his eyes. His eyes look demonic and selfish and narcissistic and shady. And he's developing a face of a villain, right? Like whatever Alec was in his glory years, he looked like a leading man, and now he looks like a villain, and people think of him as a villain.
Unruly, as you might imagine. So anyway,
That's like a fake sad smile, right?
I've been taking my mask on and off. Yeah.
It's funny you talk about masks, because it could mean a different sort of a mask, right? The mask of a brand mask, a fake mask, a persona, an actor's mask, right? And the real Alec Baldwin is starting to emerge.
Anyway, people trying to live their lives and be happy. The same everywhere.
Wow. Not the same everywhere. And so that was just, he's not doing well. And so let's get off Alec Baldwin here, but, he's not helping himself out. Just disappear, bro. Like, you did it for a while, and I was like, oh, can't make any more Alec Baldwin videos. And then he comes back giving us content and being clueless. Like, his big claim to fame is his inability to self-perceive and cluelessness. And he's getting that, that's a duo, it's a double shot, because his wife is even more clueless than he is. So Hellmann's mayonnaise has mayo tackles food waste. And so he's got Hellmann's on his shirt. This is Gerard Mayo. He's a linebacker. I think he's retired. I don't know what he is. But, let's just, this is their Super Bowl ad.
Hellmann's wants to tackle food waste, so naturally, they hired this legend.
All right, so this is, they're trying to make something creative, something that stands out because of these Super Bowl ads. And so their concept here is that they're, a mayonnaise company that doesn't want people to waste food anymore.
Don't toss that.
And so they hired a guy named Mayo because they sell mayonnaise. And they want him to go into people's homes and assault them for throwing food away. Like, that's the premise of their Super Bowl ad, right?
You can make grilled cheese with that bread. Not on my...
Now, here's a woman who's already on a crutch, right? And this guy just said, not on my watch, right? She is already hurting physically.
Watch.
And she just tackled this kid's mom, his possibly crippled mom.
You can make potato salad.
And here's an old woman. And he's broken into their home, and he's assaulting them, right? Like they didn't think this thing through.
Grandma! Don't throw away that spinach!
These guys are all taking this well. He's doing destruction to their home. They don't care about breaking things in people's houses and doing destruction, but they're very concerned about food waste and people wasting their food with their crappy mayonnaise, right?
Make a frittata.
And so they always have to hire some celebrity. Now, who knows how much Pete Davidson got paid for this? It costs $1 million to run on the Super Bowl. And you have this, ghoulish M&F are eating chips, right? Because they have to get a big name in here. And, he's on the rise. And, Alec Baldwin is fallen.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. Mom's already tackling food waste, Mayo.
That's his real life mom. And so, you know, they're saying his mom's already on it.
It's a big guy.
And so he hits Pete Davidson anyway.
Sorry, man. Had to.
I get it. I'm very hittable.
He's very hittable. And so the reason I know about this is because I think it was Page 6 ran it because Kanye says that he wants to punch Pete Davidson in the face. And so they're addressing that in this stupid Super Bowl commercial where, you know, I mean, this is just somebody going to people's houses and assaulting them. And he's being sponsored by a company, right? And no one's going to notice this because there's so much crap out there. It's just another fail, Super Bowl ad fail that they're putting out before the Super Bowl.
Make taste, not waste, baby.
Helmet.
And so I got a bunch of other things to get to. Some of it kind of maybe important. I don't know. I don't know what's important or not anymore in terms of the apocalaughs. But I just want to say one more thing about Pete Davidson and what he represents to sort of a lost generation of young men. Pete Davidson was like this ghoulish, you know, kid. His dad had this, you know, had this backstory of his dad being, you know, I don't know, a fireman who was a victim of the big event in New York City in 2001. And he was in some roasts. I saw him in some celebrity roasts. He really wasn't all that funny or polished as a comedian, but they gave him a shot in Saturday Night Live, and he just sort of hung around and really didn't do much. According to him, he just smoked a lot of pot and just was the ultimate sort of slacker. And I don't have a problem with that because I have slacker in me, right? I was always a slacker when I was young, so I don't, there's no judgment here. But a ghoulish looking dude, right? And at some point, he was put together with Ariana Grande, which, when I think about anything that happens in the celebrity culture, it's contrived, right? It's something that is scripted. Now, one of the problems with the truth community is that people give what I call the controllers a lot more power than they actually have, the people who control the system, right? Just like I was saying in the other video, oh, you have a Lamborghini? But, well, that's great, but why are you such a piece of crap, right? Yeah, your car's nice, but you're, total a-hole. Like, so people with money and power, it doesn't make them good people or interesting people or, valuable people. It just means that they have money and power, right? And a lot of these people were born into money and power. And if you met them, you would be not impressed with them as people. Like most of them, maybe a couple of them are really smart or really, knowledgeable, but most of them are just lost and crazy. And they have a lot of money and power. That explains why the world is the way it is, because the people at the top of the pyramid are insane, right? And, there's a plan. Like I believe there's always a plan in terms of God has a masterful plan underneath or above or inside of all these other things that happen, right? So there's God's plan, and then there's the plan of human beings, the plan of man. And you can take a decision. You can make a decision, and that's your choice, right? But there's going to be consequences, natural, divine consequences for your decision. And it's going to be your soul. It's going to be God. It's going to be the natural spiritual laws that are in place. And so any decision that you make is going to have other consequences that are out of your control, no matter who you are, right? And you can try to control those consequences, but, you can't. And so you can make choices, but those choices are going to have natural consequences. And evil people who, have gone to the demonic realm of things, often make choices that are in line with God's plan. Oftentimes they're playing a role and they're unconscious of it. They think they're making decisions. You think you're making decisions, but they're part of a divine plan. They're part of, the divine system. Because sometimes a consequence has to come from another person, right? Sometimes a divine consequence has to come from another person who's doing something that they think they're doing for their reason, but the reason they're doing it is because it's part of the response to somebody's choice or whatever it is, right? But anyways, the people who control the system and this thing that we call the show, they script it, And also there's divine reasons. There's a godly reason underneath that that's, more powerful, but more subtle. Like it doesn't have, the kind of force that the people who control the system use, but it's, within its subtlety, that's the transmission that's given the heartfulness system, the forceless force. God and love aren't forceful. Love compels, right? But love is the most powerful force in the universe, but is also the most subtle. But anyways, they script things. And oftentimes these celebrity relationships are scripted. And so maybe somebody told Ariana Grande to be with Pete Davidson, her publicist. I mean, who knows what it was, right? Whether it was a real relationship or not. Like, I don't care. It doesn't really matter to me because it's all just a show. It's not really important. But it had seismic effects on the culture of the youth, right? Because once Pete Davidson dated Ariana Grande, he went through a series of celebrity Hollywood women, iconic women in many ways, right? Dating them. And that said a lot to the generation of young women and men in America. Like he is a defining character in their, perception of the world. You have all these, weak, unathletic, ghoulish, young men who are out there playing video games for 8 hours a day and really, don't have much purpose or ambition, and they don't see much of a future, and, they're not well educated, they're not really good at anything. And they look at Pete Davidson as being, hey, look, he's, he's with all these A-list women, and you have these young teenage girls who look at Pete Davidson and being with these women. Women look at other women to see who other women find attractive. And so they are looking at these ghoulish generation of these guys who are, they're guys who really like the Joker movie, right? And so, it's a defining person, and it's not a good one, right? It's not somebody who is, spiritual or, has redeeming qualities. It's somebody who's really weak and, clueless, and not in a good way. Not like he's going to find his way onto a higher spiritual path at some point. Right? He's just some lost, Machine Gun Kelly hanging out with kind of loser who, is now looked at as the alpha male, in this show that we're all watching. And he's an example for young men and a life partner choice for a lot of these young women who are growing up, and they are, being trained to think this is natural and appropriate. It's another sign, like Pete Davidson is clearly one of the horsemen of the apocalypse, right? He's like pestilence or something. But anyways, let's get back to this other stuff, some other big stuff going on here in the world of celebrities and in the news media. Playmate claims she aborted Hugh Hefner's devil child at 19. There's been a bunch of Playboy stories coming out. There was Holly Madison that talked about, having to succumb to a ghoulish, older, creepy Hugh Hefner. Hugh Hefner is the Pete Davidson of his generation, and he represents the devil. Playboy was just the Playboy Mansion and all those Playmates, and, Bill Cosby used to go over there. I mean, all these celebrities did. And it's a demonic, abusive, twisted. I mean, there's a young woman who allegedly committed suicide, Paige, whatever her name was. I've covered her before. She referred to Hugh Hefner as the devil, right? And here he is being called the devil child by another Playmate. And MK Ultra, the mind control victims, often refer to their handlers as the devil, right? And so here is one of these two girls is the girl in question. She's a twin. And here they are. Look at this ghoulish MNFer. So he is Pete Davidson, right? Somebody who, was, you have all these women around them that even at an older age, he would sleep with, in a bed with various 6 or 7 women. And then he'd choose which one he wanted to have, right? All these women here. And, just creepy and just like a demonic, wearing that frickin' sailor's hat, right? There's one of the twins there. And so she says here in the article from the Mirror, I wasn't having sex with anybody else. It only could have been his baby. I just wanted to get rid of it as soon as possible. I didn't have to find out, and he never did. I was disgusted with my body and felt like an alien was inside of my stomach. It was like the devil was inside of me. I didn't want anyone to know I was carrying an 83-year-old man's child. I mean, just, like, look at the guy, right? I mean, they just succumb to this guy. I think that's Holly Madison. There's been a bunch of articles. I haven't covered it. I've covered him before. Playboy's just demonic. There are the two twins there. There they are with Hef. This, he always wore red too, and just devilish, like Alec Baldwin's face is like demonic as he got older. Just creepy and all these things. Top White House scientist resigns, admit he caused hurt. A news report on Monday alleged that Eric Lauder bullied and demeaned his staff. Behavior President Biden had said would result in his firing.
A major resignation this morning for the Biden administration. President Biden's top science advisor, Eric Lander, stepped down yesterday after a 2-month White House investigation found credible evidence he had bullied and demeaned his staff. Politico was first to...
Okay. Like, why would you hire this MFer? I mean, as your chief science advisor.
Report that Lander, the director of the Office of Science and Technology Policy, had been accused by current and former colleagues of creating a toxic environment, especially for women. In his resignation letter, Lander says, quote, "I am devastated that I caused hurt to past and present colleagues by the way in which I have spoken to them." Lander becomes the first cabinet-level departure from President Biden's team.
So one of Joe Biden's selling points, what he said that was a selling point, as opposed to Trump, that he was going to listen to his scientific advisors. He was going to listen to the science. Science was a big part of Joe Biden's platform. And science is a big part of this agenda they're rolling out, everything to do with COVID. And trust the science. Science is everything. Science is the new God. We have the science. We know the science. Anybody who doesn't agree with the science should be demonized and deplatformed. Science, 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 science. Trust the science, right? And so now it's trust the bully, because their chief scientific advisor was a bully, a misogynistic bully that bullied women, created a toxic environment. And you're going to listen to that guy because the science isn't clear. The science is being interpreted, right? And so this is a lot bigger than people think, because, this was one of Joe Biden's, this is what I'm going to do better than Trump, right? This is one of his, he's going to be a president who trusts the science. You trust the bully, right? Because the character of the person in charge of your department matters. And they've had a lot of issues there as well. A lot of things that they've said are scientific have turned out to be false, and they've had to change, whatever's going on there, right? And so this, and you think about all the people who have been deplatformed, all the people who have suffered because of, the so-called, science community, right? Not trusting the science, not going along with the science, and, And the truth always comes out in one way or another. Maybe not everybody sees it, but it's there to be seen. And this is like a moment of truth. Oregon GOP gubernatorial, he's a gubernatorial candidate, admits he and his wife belong to swingers group. That sounds about right. 2022 Oscar nominations, the complete list. Expect to see Power of the Dog, Belfast, and West Side Story compete for Best Picture. How is West Side Story even being remade? That's a Spielberg thing. Best Picture, Belfast, Don't Look Up. Well, I saw that certainly wasn't the best picture of the year. Licorice Pizza, that's probably interesting. I think I saw the trailer. Maybe I did a video on the trailer. Dune, Coda, Drive My Car, King Richard.
Sarah Murphy, Adam Somner, and Paul Thomas Anderson, producers.
Nightmare Alley,
Nightmare Alley, that's already on HBO, right? And so I think most of these movies bombed. I think Dune did okay. And, the rest of them, I'm glad they're not putting in, maybe they're going to do that here.
Guillermo del Toro, J. Miles Dale, and Bradley Cooper, producers.
The Power of the Dog.
The Power of the Dog. The dog has power.
Jane Campion, Tanya Segat.
You should have rehearsed the name. You're supposed to be a professional actor.
Tanya Segachian, Emil Sherman, Ian Canning, and Roger Frappier produced.
Well, that's what you do is you read other people's words. You should at least, I don't pronounce names, so I'm not, but I'm not a trained actor.
And West Side Story.
Come on. Just the trailer alone. I mean, it's just not a good movie. It's dated.
Steven Spielberg and Christy McCosco Krieger.
They don't care about what people like, right? It's just their pretentious Hollywood, dreams about the world the way that Hollywood sees it. So I just want to wrap this up. It's a longer video. I made a good video today on apocalaughsnow that goes with this, right? It has Scarlett Johansson's Super Bowl ad with her husband about Amazon's Alexa being able to read your mind, which is cool. Stacey Abrams and the mask debacle there. And then more on World War III and Nostradamus' prediction, which, is kind of coming through. And so just to wrap this thing up here, the Oscars, I went back and I watched all the trailers and I did a segment that was supposed to go at the end of this video, but I forgot to unpause my, recording, my screen capture recording, screen flow thing. And so I've done that a number of times, and I just couldn't redo it and didn't want to sit through the trailers. I mean, it was just bits and pieces of each trailer. It's probably better off that that it didn't. But if you watch all the trailers to the movies that are nominated for Best Picture, it encompasses every demographic that Hollywood is forcing and pushing on everybody and all their ideology about it, right? Each movie represents some kind of political, socio-political issue that Hollywood is trying to force on everybody, and force never works. I'm saying this more and more, right, on a daily basis in terms of what they're doing here, that force always creates a counterforce. It's one of the primary teachings of the heartfulness system, that the forceless force, which is love, is the only force in the universe, only power that doesn't create a resistance, an anti-movement. And so with all this force that's being used that Hollywood's pushing out there, of course, it's going to be a counterforce, which we know there is, right? And, it's just all going to backfire, but by that time, it'll be too late anyway. Only spirituality will save this world. It's Paramount, definitely point for the apocalypse and the ascension. Everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.